Nation's nuclear arsenal is its family jewel, okay? And what got me into UFOs, after I read about Fukushima, I was like, oh, damn, we're screwed, you know? Is there any way out? And I couldn't find any way out, and then I thought, well, what about, like, divine intervention, you know? Maybe, I mean, I just couldn't, it was hard to accept, you know, complete extermination. Well, actually, they said what Fukushima is going to ultimately do is turn the Earth into Mars. And, you know, there's no life at all. And, you know, people will say, well, yeah, humans might die, but the Earth will keep going on and the planet. Well, no. The Earth ain't going to survive the radiation either.
Fukushima, exponential growth, global warming, and nuclear war. Jim Chambers is a near-term human extinction researcher, and tonight we talk about the end of the world. That and more, coming right up on My Alien Life. My Alien Life is recorded live from atop the Northern Rocky Mountains and is available on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and everywhere fine podcasts are found. My website is at www.myalienlifepodcast.com. There you will find my email address, all previously recorded shows, and more. I am Cameron Brower. This is My Alien Life, and the podcast starts right now.
My Alien Life Podcast.
Three, two, one, zero, and liftoff.
My guest tonight is a near-term human extinction researcher. Jim Chambers has a message for the world, and that is radiation is a cheap way to produce electricity and has many practical applications, but the time has come to divert us from certain extinction. Jim Chambers, thank you so much for joining me, and welcome.
Glad to be here.
Last few days, we've been talking over some issues back and forth online and some things that could potentially cause the extinction of humans as a species, but also some things that could sterilize Earth possibly for eternity. So, you know, pleasant thoughts. But I'd asked you to give me 4 problems that you thought that we're facing and need to deal with immediately. Can you go over those quickly, and then we'll kind of address each one of them one by one?
The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear meltdown, or should I say 3 nuclear meltdown screws. This is the worst catastrophe that has ever happened to mankind in all of human history. Scientists call it Chernobyl on steroids. And Chernobyl was pretty bad, actually. Millions of deaths as a result across Europe, and it's still going on. Radiation, the kind of radiation we're talking about, doesn't just go away. It bioaccumulates. So it's an ongoing thing over there around Chernobyl, Europe. There's hospitals now with kids being born now, even. You know, I forget exactly when Chernobyl was, but at least a decade, I think, and they're still being born disfigured. There's a hospital. Well, anyway, the Fukushima Daiichi triple meltdown right on the coast of the Pacific Ocean. Let me try to put it a little better way.
Well, let's freeze that one moment. Let's just jump ahead a little bit. And the other one of those, I'd asked you to mention 4 things. We're going to talk about each of them, but the other 3 things were exponential growth, global warming, and nuclear war. So I guess my question is what got you thinking about these 4 things, and what kind of an effort and research are you putting into it, and where do you plan on going with that?
Okay, well, what really got me into it was the March 3rd, 2011 Fukushima meltdown. At the time it happened, they were just saying, it's the worst catastrophe ever in all human history. Of course, now they don't say nothing about Fukushima. They are clamping down. It's illegal to even talk about Fukushima in Japan. You can't report on it. They throw reporters in jail. They just did not too long ago one that tried to. And I guess our CIA went over there when it happened and told them how to downplay it. So, the first rule of Fukushima is you don't talk about Fukushima. Of course, now you wanted to know the other points too, like the global. Well, that's what started me on all this. I just thought, oh my gosh, and at first I thought, well, they'll fix it, give them a couple years, they'll figure something out. But no, it's going unremediated. At least TEPCO, Tokyo Electric Power Company, says it's about 300 tons of highly radioactive water is going into the Pacific every day. But now 300 tons is like a swimming pool. I think it's probably more like 10 times that, if you know the way it was set up at the base of a mountain, so all the water would come down the mountain. It takes like 1 million gallons a minute to keep these reactors cool. And as long as everything was intact, fine. But after the tsunami, the earthquake, and then the tsunami that went over the seawall, flooded the backup generators, which were the size of houses. As a matter of fact, they've got $10 million pumps over there sitting idle because no technicians will go near the place. I mean, it's a dead zone, just like Chernobyl, but on steroids, much worse. It isn't stopping. Every single day, at least 300-400 tons of highly radioactive, because what happened is the cores melted through 6 inches of steel, concrete. It's in the earth. They can't find it. The robots get fried when they try to look for it, so they're not even sure where they are exactly. These cores are like 50 feet across, 2 stories high, fissioning, which means hotter than the sun.
Let me ask you this really quick. In 2011, when you first heard about this, where were you? What were you doing? And how and why did that grab your attention? And
well, I remember I was just driving along, listening to the radio. I think I was at work delivering something, and it just came on the radio. I don't know. I don't think it was that very day. It might have been. I'm not sure the exact date, but that first day or two. And the announcer came on and just said, "This is the worst catastrophe ever to happen to mankind in all of human history." And that caught my attention. So I thought, well, wait a minute. What do you mean, like a natural disaster or what? Well, no, it's completely man-made. Plutonium isn't natural. It's all man-made. So that caught my attention. And I thought to myself, well, we'll figure it out. And then a couple years later, I rechecked just to see. So 11, 12, like 2013. And what I was looking at, no, they can't fix it. The technology isn't there to fix it. It's an extinction level event. This radiation is going to keep bioaccumulating from Fukushima in particular. Now there's 400 nuke plants worldwide. This is just one plant. You had 3 Mile Island, you had Chernobyl, you had a couple other ones that melted down, but not the way Fukushima is. Far worse, 100 times worse than Chernobyl, even, because now Chernobyl, they were able to cover it up with concrete, and of course that's going to be eaten away before too long. Let's do again, but because it lasts forever, 25,000 years just for plutonium half-life. Whereas Fukushima, the way they got it, the water comes down the mountain like they planned it, and it goes over these pools that have to keep these cores cool, and, 1 million gallons a minute. But now that the cores are in the earth, the water from the mountains going over the cores and right out into the sea. And so the water that's going into the sea from here is really radioactive, thousands of different isotopes, not just uranium, plutonium. Well, I think what they call it is MOX fuel. Well, there's a whole other story, because unit number 4 atomized, aerosolized all that MOX fuel, 40 years worth, into the atmosphere when it exploded. Enough MOX fuel to kill all life on the planet 4 times over. Now, it's going to take a minute. So, the cancers take anywhere from 3 to 30 years. And see, that's the saving grace with these nuclear. But nobody died. Nobody died at the meltdowns and the fuel pools being aerosolized and that. Well, see, it takes like years before it starts to hit. See, so that's the nuclear industry saving grace. And they always say, nobody died. Well, yeah, not this year, but it's coming, and it is coming. If I was smart, I would invest in cancer stock, because it's been what now, 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 9 years. Now, I had read a timeline for Fukushima, and they said 1 to 10 years, the animals and plants will start to feel the effect of this radiation, unremitted radiation. It gets higher every day. For the last, 9 years now or whatever. The timeline, 1 to 10 years, fish and animals start to feel effect. 10 to 20 years, humans start to feel the effect, i.e. get sick and die. 20 to 100 years, all life in the northern hemisphere will go extinct. Or 100 to 200 years, all life in the southern hemisphere will go extinct. And what I had found out doing research is, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, they really don't mix. So that's why the discrepancy, first the northern hemisphere and then the southern hemisphere. And then I found out, 90% of all the humans live in the northern hemisphere. Well, anyway, that's the supposed timeline. God, I hope I'm wrong. I've got a grandkid. Well, anyway, it's so bad at Fukushima. Nobody, because where do you go to find out information? Radiation and nuclear, nobody knows about that, and they ain't telling us either. So you just got to look for it. But it's there.
I think one of the really, really interesting things about plutonium to me is that it reacts with everything, with carbon and nitrogen and hydrogen, and so the properties of it's so unstable. I mean, it doesn't matter how it's contained, or it doesn't matter how it's synthesized. It doesn't matter what you do with plutonium. It's going to react to anything that surrounds it, anything that interacts with it, and the byproduct is all kinds of different radioactive elements and isotopes, and like you said, and it's so incredibly dangerous. It's man-made.
Absolutely.
And it's perfect for what it does. However, the byproducts that it produces and its ability to react is unprecedented. There's nothing else like it on the planet. And it makes it so inherently dangerous and so incredibly bad to handle that there really isn't a plan B. I mean, if something like this, like Fukushima happens, there's really nothing you can do about it. You can't contain it. You can't handle it. You have to maintain it. You have to keep it cool. You have to keep it. in its
contained for sure
in its most stable form, which is really hard to do. So that just means, you have a group babysitting it night and day forever. As soon as you make it, you have to watch it night and day, nonstop for, thousands of years. I mean, there's no way to get rid of it, So,
oh yeah. And since you're on the subject of the plutonium, there's the Hanford nuclear power plant in Washington State, Hanford. They've got 80 tons of it, plutonium. I think since the 40s, they've been storing it there, 80 tons of it. Now, it was either 1 ounce or 1 pound of plutonium properly distributed could kill everybody on Earth. I want to say all life on Earth. But I think what I read is like the guy just said, well, every person on Earth, if just 1 ounce or 1 pound properly distributed, kill everyone on Earth. And I thought, and then they're saying, and it's leaking. And they've got 80 tons of it leaking into the environment, into the atmosphere. These nuclear power plants were made the last 40 years. They're all past that date. They're being extended because there's so much money to make off of them that I don't think these owners really care about the health problems. It's real cash cow, these nuclear power plants. And of course, you say nuclear power plant, but I say plutonium processing plant. That's what they're really there for. Supposedly, Einstein said, a hell of a way to boil water, because that's all these nuclear power plants do is boil water. Of course, they make the weapons grade plutonium, uranium, other things. That's why I think they're really there, war. But now, and our war toys are killing us. Fukushima, Hanford, 80 tons of this stuff, just at that one. Of course, it is the largest depository of plutonium in the United States. Actually, they even said, I read another guy, Washington is the most toxic state in the country. I think I know why, because of Hanford. And UFOs have been buzzing Hanford since the 40s. And it's there on YouTube, Hanford UFOs, whatever. And so they know that it's, and plus the doctor, I can't remember his name, at the Livermore National Institute, I think it was, but he's an expert on radiation. He said it's the most dangerous substance in the universe. And I thought, well, okay, maybe that's why they're buzzing around these plants, these power plants or plutonium processing plants. I'd say it's the most dangerous substance in the universe, not just on Earth. And if you like YouTube, which I did the other day, just to refresh myself, the 5 most dangerous elements on Earth, and sure enough, plutonium comes in at number 1. Now, I don't know if they might have something worse like nanotechnology or something that is even worse than plutonium, but for all intents and purposes, plutonium-239 is the most toxic substance in the universe. Prove me wrong. So Hanford is a big problem. They're leaking this stuff. And they've even had evacuations there. See, these nuclear power plants, we don't do sirens anymore. As a matter of fact, all nuclear power plants leak all the time. And I'm talking 400 plus plants worldwide. See, I think Germany is one of the first countries to say, you know what, we're not doing nuclear anymore, which I applaud them for that. Because, well, anyway, to make a long story short, it's really already too late. Fukushima has pumped out so much dangerous radiation that it's over already. We just don't know it. We're like dead men walking. And it travels from Fukushima across the Pacific to the west coast of the United States. So they're really getting fried.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. In 1986, I think I was in my second year in college, and that was when we learned about Chernobyl. And at that time, they were the first reports came from, I think it was Norway or somewhere, and that they were picking up radiation, and they knew immediately there was only one thing that could produce that much radiation. So there must be a meltdown in the Soviet Union. Right. So, I remember people were running and getting, iodine and things like that for, to, prevent thyroid cancer and whatever. But, with Fukushima, it seemed that we have such a better way to observe this type of disaster. We can watch the news or whatever, but we can hear from people who are actually there on the internet immediately. But this event seemed to go away and it just left our news seemingly as fast as it became a news story. Why do you think that is? Do we really have a short memory and we just don't care?
Well, no, they're clamping down on any information. I think, what was it, last year or the year before, they did mention it on the news. I think Fox News, something about Fukushima, and that the radiation levels were, and I quote, unimaginable, which they are. And that was about it. So here you have the 7th year anniversary of the worst disaster on Earth, and nobody even knows. Now, they mentioned it that one time on Fox, and of course, on CNN, I've got videos of Peter Jennings talking about how all the fish are contaminated with Fukushima radiation. I've got a video of Peter Jennings again, CNN, our milk is contaminated. Another video I got, CNN, Americans are breathing in radioactive air. The point is, everything is contaminated now. This is worldwide. And there's so many good videos out there. A real expert, my favorite is Bob Nichols of Veterans Today. He's got on YouTube, Your Radiation This Week, YRTW. And it seems like every month or maybe every couple of weeks, he'll come out and show you what the radiation readings are. And I've been watching them for years now. And yeah, I'm watching them go up. Counts per minute, CPM. I guess 5 to 20 counts per minute is normal. 300 counts per minute is evacuation level. Our whole country is around 2,000 CPMs right now. Probably more out west, but it almost doesn't seem, to me, it seems pretty homogenous because you think, oh, well, it's coming off the West Coast, so they'll get it the worst, which they are, but the rest of the country is like close behind. Illinois, Kentucky, where I live. I was watching a video the other day. Kentucky, like a Geiger counter test. The guy took his air filter off his air conditioner or whatever, and he had a Geiger counter that would check for gamma radiation, and it would like, and it would just keep beeping like that. I mean, and it looked to me like, yeah, it was like 1,800 CPMs. And I had read another story where supermarkets are banning these Geiger counters because people have decided to take it upon themselves. Well, I want to see if what I'm eating, which could be imported from Japan, rice, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, I read where even the cars they're importing to us, the Hondas, whatever, they're radioactive. Yeah, I wouldn't anything from Japan. And of course, you're going to have the Olympics over there in 2020, which is just, the cherry on the cake, if you ask me. I would never go over there. And as a matter of fact, when it happened in 2011, Hillary Clinton went over there to meet with her counterpart, and she signed off on an agreement saying that you can still send us all your food like you've been doing, even though now it's radioactive, and they won't even sell the food to their own people in Japan, but they sell it to us. Hillary sold us out again. Well, anyway,
one of the things that I think is interesting, and I'm hugely a big fan of Google Earth and Google Maps, and you can actually get a really good close up view of the plant. And it's still a mess, and it makes me wonder what kind of effort or what's going to happen. They had the liquidators at Chernobyl, there's no real solid number on how many men went out and removed all this radioactive material from Chernobyl by hand. And, that's basically what it took, because there wasn't a vehicle that they had at that time. And I don't know if we have one now that was able to go in and remove all this material without it basically suffering through a series of almost mini meltdowns inside with circuitry and things like that just can't work, because plutonium reacts with everything. Again, especially carbon and iron and copper and things like that. It's just really a nasty material. So it basically eats things like that as quick as you can bring that in there. So if you check out Google Earth, you can see, basically right down into the power plant and see what sort of has been moved and cleaned up, which hasn't been very much in the last 9 years. So what do you think?
Yeah, they've tried an ice wall to stop the flow of these tons of highly radioactive water flowing into the Pacific. They tried ice wall, they tried holding it down, they've tried everything. There's nothing they can do, really. Actually, when it happened, the Japanese mafia, the Yakuza, recruited all these homeless people to go and clean it up. Recruited, quote unquote. And then after that, what they started to do, what they had to do is, this is what they were doing. It was so highly radioactive that they would put a worker in a suit, which really didn't do anything as far as I'm like paper suit even. It doesn't. Well, anyway, but they could only work for 3 minutes. So they would suit him up. The guy would go over to where he would do his work for 3 minutes and then come back, suit back down. They'd get another guy suit up, send him in there for 3 minutes. They could only work 3 minutes at a time. And I mean, think about that. That's just so, and plus they haven't fixed nothing yet. Like I say, the media is mum on Fukushima or radiation even. They won't mention the word, if the fish are dying in the ocean, or, it's a parasite, or, the ocean's heating up and it's causing it, but they'll never say radiation, which is exactly what it is. The coral reef now is dead, bleached out. 28 million year old coral reef, the biggest living organism on Earth, the only one that you can see from space, gone now. I know why, but they won't tell you why exactly. They won't say radiation. We'll say this, that, or the other thing. And yeah, it's affecting, the salmon and the bottom of the food chain is the plankton. And that's absorbing a lot of radiation, and that's kind of going extinct too, the bottom of the food chain.
So we definitely have, in addition to Fukushima and radiation, this is kind of a double-edged sword or multiple-edged sword, because we have a lot of things happening on our planet right now that any of those things could be a detriment. So what is it about global warming that concerns you? What is it about global warming rather that should concern everyone?
Well, the global warming, what it does is it's melting the frozen methane in the Antarctic and in the ocean, all over the world, but let's just stick with the Antarctic, which this year has seen the hottest year ever in history for the Antarctic this year. I just read it the other day. And of course, last year was the hottest year on record in the Antarctic, or in the world, actually. I shouldn't just stick that. Like the 16 years out of this last 20 years of this century have been the hottest on record. I'll tell people at work, I'll bet you this year will be the hottest on record, just like last year and the year before that and the year before that. But when they come on the news, all they do is they say, 2019 is the hottest year on record. But they don't tell you that, well, so is 18 and 17 and 16. It's going up. And the reason that is because, they want to keep saying carbon. Well, yeah, carbon, but what it really is the methane is melting, and the methane makes it hotter. Melting more methane, making it hotter, melting more methane. It's a catch-22, see? And right now, it's melting big time. And for decades, scientists have said, if that frozen methane, which is in the gigatons, ever melts, we're screwed. I'm using the nice word, screwed. But they actually said, and these are scientists. If that methane ever melts, it's over. And it's what's happening right now. I've seen pictures under the ocean. You see all these bubbles, like for as far as you can see, coming up out of the ocean floor. These bubbles, it's the methane melting. The Antarctic, and actually they says, now that this permafrost is melting, the methane, it's releasing million-year-old viruses that we have no defense against. Because there's I guess, frozen, rotting corpses or whatever that are being thawed out now, and it's releasing viruses and bacteria, they said, that we don't, so that's a whole nother thing. But it's the frozen methane release, in particular, Antarctic frozen methane release. That's the problem with global warming. It ain't the carbon so much as the methane. And
what about a rebound? I mean, a rebound effect, meaning that, all of a sudden we have all this methane that basically is destroying the environment and causing these
it's making
changes.
It hotter.
And yeah, but what about a reverse effect and causing a new ice age? I mean, there's that thought as well, isn't there?
Yes, there is. They say, well, the sun, it looks like we're due for another ice age, which would be great, but I don't see it happening yet. Like I say, just this year, the Antarctic, another record-breaking hottest. Oh, actually, I'd read where this decade was the hottest on record. And the last decade before that was the hottest decade on record. See, so we're getting hotter and hotter. And what I see happening, which is backed up by numerous scientists, it's just going to keep getting hotter and hotter because the way the Earth reacts, it takes the Earth 40 years for you to actually see the results. So the results we're seeing right now is, for all intents and purposes, from 40 years ago. See? So what's happening right now, we won't even see for another 40 years, but, it's really too late now. Unless there was an ice age. I've even heard things like, well, if we're going extinct and it's just getting too hot where, the food won't grow or plants, we could maybe set off super volcano, Yellowstone, and that'll cause a nuclear winter, and that'll cool the planet down. So I guess what they're saying, well, on our way out, we might just explode Yellowstone supervolcano just to cool things down. Of course, that's conjecture, but what I know for a fact is it's getting hotter every year, and there doesn't look like. And actually, I've looked at charts, the temperatures over from 1800 to now, and now it's like a hockey stick chart. I mean, it's going straight up, and I don't see anything to counter that. And and I must have looked at 10 different graphs, and they all are going straight up hockey stick chart now. 10 years ago, it was starting to go up straight, but now it is absolutely going straight up.
I think at one time they predicted, glaciation to reoccur in 50 to 80,000 years, but now that's being rethought. Yeah, just too much trapped carbon dioxide, methane, and everything else in the atmosphere.
Right. And see, I'm not really even worried about the carbon. it's that methane, which they never mention. They'll always mention carbon and global warming, climate change, but they don't really tell you what the problem really is, which is the methane, the gigaton of methane. And when it's released, it gets in that, it makes it hotter, see, melting more methane. It's a catch-22, a feedback loop of just one of many feedback loops. What was I going to say? So, yeah, you got the global warming, you got the radiation bioaccumulation. It doesn't dissipate in the ocean. It doesn't dissipate in the atmosphere. The radiation we're concerned with, it lasts forever. See, that's why they got to contain it forever, which is a big word, forever. I mean, the pyramids are what, how many thousands of years old, and
so we have to contain the radiation and the methane.
Yes.
Which is not even funny, but it's impossible.
Yeah, it really is. Oh, it's over. Absolutely. I'm convinced of it, and I'm not one of these the world coming to an end guy. But Fukushima made all the difference in the world. And then that turned me on. Then I started noticing the other things like the methane release. And
is there a theory that anybody has on stopping the release of methane other than cooling down the planet?
Well, at first they said, if we just stopped all industrial activity, which would, they're thinking about carbon, that would possibly do it. But now they know that, no, that wouldn't do it. It might even exacerbate. It's complicated, but even that won't work now. If we were to stop all industrial activity. And see, here's the third thing about the near-term extinction is the exponential growth. I remember growing up in the 70s, there's like 3 billion people on Earth. Now it's probably 8 billion. And exponential is like 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. It doubles now they're saying it's doubling. I remember when they were saying 20 years, but now I even heard, well, no, it'll double in 15 years. So we're going to go from 8 billion to 16 billion people in the next 15 years. See, civilization is a heat engine. The carbon, it's getting hotter, and the methane in particular. So there's another thing is the exponential growth.
Talk about that. What's exponential growth mean to you, and why is that worrisome? Haven't we stopped having kids? Aren't we? I know from we're down to, like, in the U.S. 3.14 people per family when it used to be like 3.67 in the 60s. Aren't we doing better?
No. As a matter of fact, we're doing a little worse because of the radiation will attack, what do they call it, zygotes and the little embryos, and we're kind of going sterile. Men are going sterile because of the radiation.
But that's good. We have less people, less problems, less carbon footprint, less methane, less global warming, right?
No, I don't think, like I say, this is like what we're experiencing now is like from 40 years ago. See, so by the time the Earth actually reacts, or that we could see the consequences, it's the consequences of like 40 years ago. Because, the Earth has a way, and carbon's really good. It helps plants grow, and the oceans inducted into the seafloor. But now with just so many people, another thing is, food production and water and our resources, oil, whatever. I mean, the more people you have, the more things you're going to need. And of course, maybe you have a virus or something that'll knock out, 20 million here, there, wars and stuff. But the exponential growth is just that. It is doubling. I'm going to even just say 20 years, even though it might be 15 years. But so that's not good either, just because of the resources and the people. And as far as it being good, nature all nature really cares about is spreading the genes. It's all about spreading the genes. Now, we over here have maybe 1 or 2 kids. So, no, I don't think it's a good thing that we only have 1 or 2 kids versus their 15 kids. Yeah, you got the bioaccumulation, plus not just Fukushima. Like I say, there's 400 plants worldwide. They're all leaking. You got Hanford over here. You're not. And, what was I going to say? And it just bioaccumulates year after year. I watch it getting higher and higher. Like I say, your radiation this week, Bob Nichols, he's charted. And actually, the United States have taken down almost all their radioactive sensors to sensors. They say they're broken. But the reason they really don't work is because they don't go that high. The radiation is so high now that they can't even record it. So that's why they're quote unquote broke. One guy that did that, and excuse my French, but this is better. The readings are higher than fuck. And yeah, that's good. Now with humans, but humans are unequipped to detect radiation. You can't smell it, you can't see it or taste it, or yeah, you'll feel it, and when you start getting cancer, all kinds of things really, mutations.
It seems to me that they're, considering what happened. I know that Japan is a long ways away, but to me, I think we should be seeing more radiation. The other thing too is the fact that you had this huge tsunami, and followed by a couple of more that washed millions of tons of debris out into the ocean, which they've found in Portland, Oregon, all the way down to San Diego. Yeah. So,
radiation for us.
But there's, once it's here, you can have a piece of maybe a boat that floated all the way across the ocean with just the hull, just the shell, what's left over from a boat that's been damaged, and it's radioactive. But, once it sinks into a sandbar somewhere in off our coast, it's basically polluting that. And I thought we'd see more of that. Is it happening?
Well, from the readings I get, I'll look at it every couple of weeks. I'll just look, and yeah, the CPM counts per minute, and they're only measuring gamma. There's thousands of isotopes, so you can really times these numbers by 5, just the gamma reading. And yeah, I've seen them go to 300 counts per minute to, like I say, real close to 2,000 or more now over the last few years. I watched it, and yeah, they're going up. The CPMs for at least gamma, they used to do the beta, but now for some reason they don't do that. And they have little tricks of raising the level of danger. So then, they raise the level, they do this, that, how statistics, what did Mark Twain? There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. You know what I mean? They got little tricks of making it not look so bad, but it really is.
Stick with me, Jim.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break. I'm Cam Brower, and I want to take a minute to talk about the My Alien Life Patron page. What is it? Well, think of it as an online tip jar. My Alien Life Patron page is a website that gives everyone in the world an opportunity to become a patron and support the artists they believe in. The great thing about supporting My Alien Life is you get to decide how much you feel comfortable contributing each podcast. My goal is to keep doing at least 2 podcasts each week. And it's okay if you don't want to, or if you do want to put a cap on how much you'd like to support, because, every month you won't go over your budget. As you know, some weeks I get a burst of energy and I want to produce a lot of content. And if you just want to listen without becoming a patron, well, that's awesome. You still get to hear My Alien Life podcast for free. It's expensive to make a podcast. No matter what you decide, please always listen to the podcast. That's what I really want. We're a team, and your support is what keeps people like us going. Thank you for being amazing and keep listening to My Alien Life, the podcast. And tonight I have Jim Chambers with me. Jim, thanks once again for being here. And one thing that the fourth thing that you were going to talk about is probably one of those things that we don't think about as much anymore. But at one point in the mid 80s, nuclear war was on everybody's mind, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's not gone away. It's actually worse. The weapons, we don't even use atom bombs anymore. We use thermonuclear devices, which make Hiroshima, and that's a firecracker now. Nuclear war is just as present a danger as it ever was. Maybe more so because more countries have it. I think, Israel, us, you got your nuclear subs. Pakistan and India, they have the bomb. North Korea wants it. We're trying to. Iran wants it. I mean, the more players at the poker table, the worse it's going to be, So
what would nuclear war look like in 2020? Did we ultimately build a bigger and better bomb?
Oh, we definitely have. And Russia's got the most powerful nuclear weapon on Earth at the time. They even had it in 61, La Bomba, I think it was called. And yeah, it made, even in 1961, the most powerful explosion ever from Russia's La Bomba. I mean, it reverberated around the Earth like 7 times, like 6 times higher than Mount Everest, the cloud thing. And of course, more bioaccumulation, these nuke tests, the nuke plants, and those are just the ones we know of, I have a feeling there might have been more nuke plants in Japan that went down that we just don't know about, but I don't know about all that. I don't have any proof. But
so what's our nuclear doomsday scenario? Is it mutually assured destruction, or is there something after?
Well, I had read that if just the United States used just 3% of its nuclear arsenal, we would destroy the Earth. A nuclear winter is what would happen, and after the fire and the radiation, and and then you'd have your nuclear winter. The sun ain't gonna come through, nothing's gonna grow, and of course, that's just 3% of our nuclear arsenal. Now, I read a good thing once. It says a nation's nuclear arsenal is its family jewel. Okay? And what got me into UFOs, after I read about Fukushima, I was like, oh, damn, we're screwed. Is there any way out? And I couldn't find any way out. And then I thought, well, what about like divine intervention? Maybe, I just couldn't, it was hard to accept, complete extermination. Well, actually, they said what Fukushima is going to ultimately do is turn the Earth into Mars. And, there's no life at all. And, people will say, well, yeah, humans might die, but the Earth will keep going on and the planet. Well, no.
Now, wait a minute.
Not with the radiation.
There's no life on Mars, you're telling me?
Well, as far as I know, there's no life on Mars. Okay. Maybe they might find maybe they found water, but the point is, the Earth ain't going to survive the radiation either. It's going to be, like I say, most dangerous element in the universe. And these UFOs, because that's what got me into UFOs was Fukushima, really, because I was looking for a way out. There's got to be something, maybe out of left field, divine intervention, possible. And so then I looked at these UFOs. I thought they kind of debunked that a long time ago, but no. And all of a sudden I'm seeing videos of UFOs around nuclear power plants all over the world. There's a book by Robert Hastings, UFOs and Nukes, which I read and is very good. And oh my gosh, they could just come down to these launch facilities. They stay as long as they want. There's nothing we can do about it.
What would be the incentive of that kind of intervention? Why would they care about us?
Well, what the people that are involved with it, the actual missileers and the I don't know what their rank is, but the ones that are, they're thinking it's a warning, because what they'll do is they'll come over. Well, first the neighbors of these missile silos, launch facilities, where we house these thermonuclear weapons, ICBMs, they'll call up the Air Force and be like, okay, they're coming. So they get a heads up from the neighbors that they're coming, and sure enough, here they come. They park right over the silo. They'll beam a light down to it. These missiles are 60 feet underground. And one time they set off 10 of our ICBMs, which were unconnected and miles apart. Boom, all 10 went down at once.
When was that, and where was that?
And we sent jets over there to quote unquote, intercept them, and they just like turn their lights out and disappear. So the jets go back to the base, and then boom, they appear again. Right? They stay as long as they want. And when they do leave, they set off all the alarms, which I thought was hilarious, really. And they say the way they set them off, they say usually we could reset the alarms in 20 minutes. But the way they do it, we have to actually like open the door, like a 20-ton door, silo door. It takes like 2 hours for them to reset these alarms, when usually it would only take them 20 minutes. But the way the UFOs do it, when they leave, they set off the alarms, and yet it's a big drag. It takes a lot longer to and then IBM came in to even see what they did, and they figured out what they did. They know what they did, something with the guidance system and the light, but they just don't know how they did it. 60 feet underground. UFOs and Nukes, best UFO book I've ever read. I think it's the greatest UFO book ever printed, and there's a lot of good ones out there. But UFOs and Nukes for sure. It kind of was a piece of the puzzle for me. Why are they here? What are they doing? Well, hello, the most dangerous substance in the universe, plutonium, which these bombs, uranium, and there's all kinds. It ain't just plutonium, but that's right up at the top. But the uranium and americonium and cesium and strontium-90, just on and on. These nasty radioactive. There's some isotopes that are leaking out of Fukushima right now that any element they touch will turn radioactive. Magnesium, copper, any element it touches turns it radioactive. One Japanese scientist at Fukushima said it's a demonic chain reaction. And I thought, wow, here's a scientist using the word demonic. But yeah, demonic chain reaction is what's going on. They know it. But, if we were to actually tell people how the West Coast, the real estate on the West Coast alone, like trillions of dollars probably, the West real estate prices would go, because are you going to buy a radioactive house? In Chernobyl, they had like a $25 million mansion. They can't sell it for $25,000 because it's so irradiated. See, so there's a reason, and I don't really blame them for not telling us. The stock market might crash, the real estate prices. But people wouldn't go to work. Plus now I've been watching this for years, and I got to remind myself, well, everything's just fine right now. I'm not feeling everything's fine now, but what's going on, the bioaccumulation, it's not going to go on forever.
Just a short distance from me is a radon health mine where people have been going down underground and enjoying, a dose of radiation to try to improve health. And, there's that. I'm not saying that plutonium would do that, but come on, man. There's radiation in the water. There's radiation in the oceans. There's radiation in the air. So it seems like we're living longer than before. I'm not an advocate of it, but I'm just saying that, people are. That's one issue that what we talked about earlier of exponential growth is we're also living too long.
Well, I don't think we'll have to worry about that too much longer. To tell you the truth,
No,
to say it, but
I'm just
and
throwing that out there, trying to put a positive spin on it, man. But yeah, there's really nothing that you can do
the
to
only
stop it.
positive,
Go ahead.
the only positive spin I see is these UFOs, aliens. What are they doing? Are they going to help us? I think they have already. Even in Russia, they've shut down their nukes. Well, actually, Russia has the complete opposite system than we do, so they turn theirs on, actually. See, ours are always on, so they shut them off. Russia's are always off, so they turned them on. Oh, they panicked. Within like 5 seconds before launch, the UFO shut them off again.
The Russians aren't as
panic.
comfortable with aliens as we are.
Oh, well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's worldwide what these UFOs are doing to these nuclear weapons facilities. Whether it's Russia or us, they're messing with them. And I thought about what they had said once a nation's nuclear arsenal is its family jewels. I thought, well, they're neutering us. They're shutting ours down. They're starting theirs up. They have complete control. As a matter of fact, in the UFOs and Nukes book, I'd read where the missileer 60 feet underground, he's in a fetal position, unconsolable. Because he sees on his board what's happening. This is going on, and then he'll counteract it. He'll flip this switch, and then something else will happen. It's like a tug of war between the missileer and these UFOs, which would win in the end. And so, yeah, he's just in a fetal position, unconsolable.
So here's a question that I think this is important, and I want to know what you think about this. Is this the generation right now that needs to solve these problems immediately? Are we it?
No, the last generation was. It's too
That's a
late
good
now.
one.
There's nothing we can do. It's a done deal. The only hope I see is, like I say, something divine intervention, if you will, is the only hope, really, because, I mean, the various things, if you take them all together, the methane release, the bioaccumulation, the nuclear war, which is, a moment's notice it could happen. And when I look at some of these, what would you call it? Some of these religions around the world that think they're going to do God a favor by killing all the infidels or whatever, psychopathic. You know what I mean? Well, there's another thing. The psychopaths. Oh my God. They're not human. They don't have what I think scientists call mirror neurons. So they can't put themselves in your place. And psychopaths will rise to power because they're willing to do things a normal human being wouldn't do to get there. See, so the positions of power are way skewed with psychopaths in those powerful positions. The throughout history, you've had Pol Pot and genocide, and they really aren't human. You can't even begin to imagine how a psychopath thinks.
Well, there's that, but what about the modern narcissist who seems to like to run for office and control everything?
I'm not even worried about them. These psychopaths would put them to shame. They can kill 1 million people and rest good at night. No conscience, no guilt, no remorse.
Well, what about Russia?
Really
what about the Russian government? What about they have half the world's nuclear arsenal and are pretty dangerous, and they feel very confident.
Oh yeah. What I'm really, more than the Russians, I'm worried about Pakistan and India. They hate each other. They both got nukes. There's, who knows who it's going to be. We got nuclear subs. Not all the countries that have nukes have nuclear subs. I know we do. I know Israel does. And, probably Russia. Yeah, Russia. But I don't know that India and Pakistan have them or whatever. But they could just rest right off your coast. You don't even know. A nuke could be coming down on you in like 2 minutes. Nuclear subs. Ooh. Oh, now these nuclear subs, sometimes they have problems and boom, they're dead in the water and they start leaking radioactivity too, like 800,000. I was just reading the other day, this one Russian sub emitting 800,000 times above normal radiation, and so, yeah, we're poisoning the planet with the radiation in particular and the methane. And
who has the answers? Who would you
have exponential garbage?
Yeah.
Exponential plastic in the ocean. It's already pretty bad. And, how much plastic have we actually got enough? Micro particles, they call it. And so, yeah, we're just polluting the heck out of the planet this way and that way.
Who has all the answers? Is there somebody out there that you would listen to? Is there a voice of reason, and is there a voice that we should be listening to?
Well, if you mean like a voice of hope, I mean, I guess it depends.
I'm talking about a real person.
Well, you got the other side. Oh, global warming ain't nothing, and they're just trying to tax us, and don't worry about it. Well, see, whoever's paying you depends a lot on what you're going to say. Do you want to keep your job? Do you want your pension and this? And so, but the ones that ain't getting paid, that are experts in the university, they'll just tell you, yeah, it's a feedback loop. There's nothing we can do about it now. So, yeah, just what they'll tell you, and they'll even say hope is a bad idea. It's a bad idea. And to just enjoy your life every day you got, just enjoy it and love, as much as you can. And, there's nothing else you can do, really. Now, I'm hoping, though, but I'm thinking, well, there might be a sliver of hope with these UFOs. Maybe are they doing something to mitigate?
That's where I wanted you to go. With that, I thought maybe that they would have the answer, and we could listen to a voice of reason from somewhere else and a different perspective. Do you think they have an answer for us?
Well, I think they do, but see, humans seem to have a heart problem. The constant warmongering and the war and the weapons and the psychopaths in power. And I think the answer is we're going to have to change our consciousness from everybody being separate to realizing that we are all one, and but you got this faction, that faction, separating everything, and that's not the way, we're going downhill. So I think that, just my own opinion, I think the answer is, well, like Einstein said, nuclear age has changed everything except man's way of thinking. We're going to have to stop with the warmongering. And of course, there's so much money to be made off the war, the Boeing, Douglas, each missile costs $1 million and it employs people. And so I understand why, but
yeah, war has fed a lot of families.
Our war toys are killing us. The nuclear power plants that create the weapons grade stuff that we use for these atom or nuclear missiles is killing us. It already has. Really, we just don't know. We're just waiting on the cancers to hit. I mean, they've already hit Japan and everything, but it's the Fukushima. I'm telling you, makes Chernobyl look like nothing. Chernobyl wasn't on the edge of the ocean, spewing out tons and tons every day for the last 9 years, whatever it is, since 2011, and it's just going to keep getting worse. And we'll see it. It's not going to take all that long. I don't know that we really have 10 more years. I know I've seen some politicians say, "Oh, well, we're facing extinction in 12 years," and everybody just kind of chuckles and, "Oh, yeah, right, sure." And I understand, that's how I would have been until I did all this research, the nukes and the nuke plants and the bioaccumulation and the exponential growth. And I dare say they could be right. We'll find out,
We're out of time. Let me ask you, we're out of time, but let me ask you this question. And what's next for you, and what will you do with the information that you're gathering? Going to write a book? What's going to happen, Jim?
Well, I've been on the internet, and this is my very first ever radio interview. I was kind of nervous before.
Thanks for picking me.
Oh yeah, thank you. I'd like to get the information out there, and I wouldn't have even mentioned all this if I didn't think there was a sliver of hope with these UFO aliens. Divine intervention. Let's say it's the only hope I see. Otherwise, we're doomed. Oh, yeah. Just the radiation alone, the bioaccumulation. And see, here's another thing. If there was like a war and we bombed, either purposely or accidentally, one of their nuclear power plants, well, boom, there's another dead zone. That no one will ever, and the cores will melt down over there, and it'll be another Fukushima or another Chernobyl, let's say. So if we ever bomb any of the 400 plus nuke plants worldwide, well, that's going to be like another Chernobyl. You see, so not only would a nuclear war do what it does with the bombs, but it would destroy all these nuclear power plants that would release so much radiation. Yeah, the Earth would be like Mars. That's what I see the future of Earth. If I go, let's just say in my mind, I go 100 years in the future, well, the Earth looks exactly like Mars now because of the nuclear war and the plants exploding. But we don't even have to have that. It's already, with just Fukushima alone, the way those cores are underwater and the water's coming out and pumping it into the Pacific Ocean, I don't know that I don't think the Pacific Ocean is completely dead yet, but like I say, the coral reef, and you see these conjoined sharks now, and massive deaths of whales. And I was reading one story where these scientists were looking for these certain kind of whale. I don't know if they're blue whales or gray, but they said, you know what? We know they're out there. We know some of them are out there, but we can't find them because they're not singing anymore. These whales know there's something wrong with their environment. And they're giving stillbirths. Like, I don't know that a live whale's been born in the last few years at all. And so you got these stillbirths, and because of the radiation. So yeah, it's just not, as far as that, there is no hope other than quote unquote divine intervention of some kind. But there's another thing, like, I think we almost have to invite them somehow. Like the UN has to invite, otherwise it would look like an invasion if they just landed in front of the UN, let's say, and panic, and it would look, so they want to be invited. And I don't know that we've done that yet. If anything, we just shoot at them, and of course, then
we're not really welcoming or prepared for that. I don't think that's my opinion. But
I don't think we are, at least not enough that we should be. We should be like, well, here's another thing I was thinking. It just came to me one day, and I thought, say we are going down for the third time, like a drowning man going down for the third time. Well, what better time for someone to introduce themselves to you going down than when you are going down for the third? So I guess what I'm saying is, what better time to introduce yourself to somebody than when they're going down for the third time? You'd be so grateful and, oh, thank you, And so I'm kind of hoping that that's what they're waiting for, to the last minute, to where they can just come in and be our saviors, and we'll have the proper attitude. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm waiting for too. And I'm hoping that we all have the proper attitude, and there's little doubt that we're hearing messages for our world from the oceans and from outer space. And Jim Chambers has a message for the world as well. Jim Chambers, thank you so much for joining me.
My alien
You can find my website at www.myalienlifepodcast.com, and please subscribe to my latest downloads at iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and at podbean.com. And please follow me and like me on Facebook and Twitter. My Alien Life is written and produced for broadcast at Studio 254 in the Northern Rocky Mountains. The music you are hearing is produced and created by Elion. You can find all Elion's work online at Heart Dance Records.